We here at the Sports History Network proudly partner with 26 podcasts, all revolving around the history of sports. But did you know that many of our hosts were sports history authors way before they started their shows? It's true. We've got Joe Ziemba, host of When Football Was Football, Joe Zagurski, host of Pro Football in the 1970s, Mark Morthier, host of Yesterday's Sports, Tommy Phillips, host of Lombardi Memories, and Scott Adamson, co-host of From the 55-Yard Line. All these authors have many books for you to choose from. To check them out, go to our website at sportshistorynetwork.com/sportshistorybooks. Pick up your copy today. Soundtrack provided by Kevin MacLeod of filmmusic.io.
Welcome to the show, everybody! Today is Sunday, June 26th, 2022. This is Season 2, Episode 4. And there will not be a Dunks side of this episode. And this episode is dedicated to my grandpa. And I've already talked about his favorite basketball team, the Boston Celtics. Some of his favorite players from the Celtics was Bird and Havlicek and Cowens. He also liked George Mikan from the Minneapolis Lakers. But we're just going to talk baseball today because that's it's what he loved the most was baseball. So my grandpa was born June 26, 1935. He would have been 87 years old. He was the fifth of six kids, and he was the youngest boy. There was his older brothers were 4 years older than him to 14 years older than him. So a lot of age disparity there. So he'd get picked on, but he brought it on himself a lot as well because he always said he was mouthy. That's probably where I got it from. He was the kind of troublemaker, but never got enough to get in trouble with the law. He played baseball growing up. And he would actually go to the golf course and find golf balls in his free time as well. And then he would sell them back to the golfers. One story he liked to tell me is that one of the golfers gave him a golf club, and he was in the backyard hitting the ball around, and then he finally got a hold of it, and it shot through the back of the house and went out the front of the house, and apparently whizzed by his dad's, my great-grandpa's head, which then proceeded to make his mom mad, who then came out and took the golf club and wrapped it around the clothes hanging pole in the backyard. So he dropped out of high school at the age of 16 and talked his mom into signing the paper for him to join the Air Force. And this was 51, right around 51, and which was about the same time that we're starting to get into the Korean conflict. So he served during the Korean conflict, but never went to Korea until after the treaty had signed, and then he spent 13 months in Korea. He, at one point in Germany, he was on a plane that caught on fire, and as it was landing. Another point was when he was in Korea, and because he was an airman police. So that's what he did. He was doing rounds in Korea and was taking sniper fires, and he always told me that he had to crawl on his belly to get to the phone to radio for help, which then brought in the tank, and then the tank lit up the mountain that the sniper is shooting from, and he said out came all the snipers with their hands up. So he also said that he went around the world twice before he even married my grandma, who he met in elementary school, since she was one of his youngest sister's friends. They married in July 14th, 1956, and then my grandpa had to finish his time out in El Paso. So he went to El Paso to finish that out, and my grandma stayed in Sioux City. She did make one trip down to see him on the bus, and then basically lived with his parents here in Sioux City. And then in 57, they had their first child, which was my my Aunt Mary Jean, and then they had 6 more after her. So yeah, it was during his time as a kid listening to the Yankees games on the radio, and also his time in the military when he would also listen to as well. And my uncles always told me when they were growing up even in the 60s and early 70s that if the Yankees were on the radio in the house at all times. And he had this really old radio, which was pretty cool. His favorite Yankees of all time were Mantle, Whitey Ford, and Yogi Berra. And then he had one non-favorite Yankee, which is Rocky Calavito. He was a welder after he got out of the military. And then he started working so then he ended up working the 3 to 11 shift. Well, that just happens the same time that he got, like I said, he got cable in 82 and started watching WGN during the day, would watch Cubs games. So then, like I say, if it wasn't for WGN and the Cubs, I would have been a Yankees fan. Could have been. What could have been? I could have celebrated 5 championships already in my life instead of just 1. And an awesome year that they're having this year, too. He loved the Cubs, and, but he was always a Yankees fan deep down. He did see the Yankees win 5 World Series in his lifetime, and he'd always, every time they won, he'd have the biggest grin on his face. It was like the most happiest I would see him. So, like I said, they had 7. My grandparents had 7 kids, 10 grandkids, and 13 great grandchildren. He did not live long enough to see the Cubs win a World Series in 2016, as he passed away July 26th, a month after his 81st birthday and 12 days after their 60th wedding anniversary. He battled prostate and brain cancer. But the Cubs ended up winning in November, but the 1961 New York Yankees is what sets itself apart from all the others that my grandpa followed and loved. So, a little bit of on this day before we get into the 1961 Yankees is on this day, June 26, 1935, the day he was born, a Major League Baseball record was set by Lloyd Wainer for 18 putouts from center field during a doubleheader versus the Boston Braves. And my Did You Know has a little bit of Yankees lore in it as well. Because did you know that Carroll Hardy, he pinched hit for Carl Yastrzemski, Ted Williams, and he had a pinch hit home run for Roger Maris when they were Cleveland teammates. The only person to pinch hit for all 3. So, 1961 was the year the AL expanded the schedule to 162 games due to the expansion of 8 teams from the never played a single game Continental League. The AL added the Twins that had moved from D.C. as the Washington Senators. Then they replaced the Washington Senators with another Washington Senators team. And they also added the Angels. The NL was still at 154 games this year in 1961 until 1962 when they expanded. 1961 saw Warren Spahn win his 300th game. Willie Mays hit his 300th home run. Sandy Koufax attempt to steal and was thrown out. That was the only attempted stolen base he had of his career. The Phillies lost 23 straight games, which is still a modern-day record. And then there was Mays and Mantle, or not Mays. There was Maris and Mantle chasing Ruth for 60 dingers, with Maris hitting number 61 on game 163. Since they had to, and there was 163 games since they had to make up a tie game with the Baltimore Orioles early in the year. MVP for the AL was Maris, and it was his second straight year that he won the MVP award. The Cy Young went to Whitey Ford. and the Rookie of the Year went to Don Schwell of Boston. On the NL side, you had Frank Robinson win the MVP award. There was no Cy Young Award winner in the NL due to, at that time, until 1967, the award was only given to the best Major League pitcher. The NL Rookie of the Year was Billy Williams of the Chicago Cubs. In 1961 also saw Mickey Mantle become the highest paid player that year at $75,000 for that year. All this brings me to the 1961 New York Yankees. The Yankees played at Yankee Stadium, which was home of also the New York Football Giants at the time. So the dimensions of Yankee Stadium was 301 down the left field line, 402 straight left, 457 to the left center gap, 461 to straight center, 407 to right center field, 367 to right field, and 296 down the right field line. And this team hit 240 home runs that year. It was a giant, weird horseshoe that they had to expand due to the football stadium. This stadium could also hold 65,000 people at any given moment as well because of the football side of things. And it wasn't until the 70s when they renovated it did they actually make it more like a diamond shape and brought the center field wall in due to the Giants all now playing at the Meadowlands of New Jersey. The Yankees that year finished with a record of 109, 53, and 1, all because of that tie. They also had the second coming of Murderers Row with Mantle, Maris, Berra, Elston Howard, Johnny Blanchard, and Bill Moose Skowron. The six of them combined for 207 home runs of the 240 that were hit. That 240 was a record that stood until, for some reason, the Yankees always have problems with the Orioles, and the Orioles decided to take over this record as well when they hit 257 dingers as a team in 1996. The 1961 Yankees were also under new management as 41-year-old Ralph Hoke replaced Casey Stengel after he was let go at the end of the 1960 season, with the Yankees ownership citing his age at 70 years old. Then Casey Stengel made them have a press conference to where they asked if he was fired, and the Yankees the Yankees ownership did not answer. And then they got to Casey Stengel, and he asked if he was fired, and he goes, "Fired, quit, who gives a damn? I'm out of a job." He then went on to manage the Mets and won a championship with them in 1969 as the Miraculous Mets. Ralph Hoke didn't make a change that Casey Stengel would not do, and that was he switched Mantle and Maris in the lineup. So in 1960, Mantle and Maris were batting. Mantle was third, Maris was fourth. Maris still hit 39 home runs in 1960. Well, Hoke came in. Ralph Hoke, I don't know how you pronounce it, comes in and he immediately switched them around. So then, instead of Maris seeing, just the back of them actually having a pitch to, they just throw whatever at Maris. With having Maris bat third and Mantle bat fourth, it ended up giving Maris not having to see a lot of bad pitches. So he was able to start opening up on his swing a little bit more, which, probably helped him hit 61 home runs because, A, you're going to face Maris or you're going to face Mantle. And at that time, you were going to rather take Maris over Mantle. So, also, one thing about Mantle that I didn't know until I started researching this. Well, I knew about the injury. I didn't know about what it actually was. So, let's talk about the injury for one thing. So, Mantle in the 51 World Series was playing right field. Joe DiMaggio was playing center field. And they're at the Polo Grounds, and rookie Willie Mays hits a short fly ball to shallow center field. DiMaggio's coming in to get it. Mantle's doing what right fielders do. Is going to back him up, at which point he gets a spike caught in an open drainage. and ends up twisting his knee. People that were there report him going down like he was shot. So he ended up getting carted off and knocked him out of the rest of the series. And it has been since speculated by doctors that he tore his ACL. Well, at that time, they didn't have any type of surgeries on ACLs whatsoever. It was a career ender. So basically, Mantle played the rest of his 18-year career with a torn ACL and was still considered the fastest man to first base. So, yeah. Also, this 61 team was pretty much the 60 Yankees as well. And the 60 Yankees lost to the Pirates in the World Series in 7 games after outscoring them 54-27. And if nobody knows, this is the series where the Yankees lost and Bill Mazeroski hits the game-winning home run in the bottom of the 9th to give the Pirates the World Championship. So this team comes into 1961 playing with a chip on their shoulder. And the first 2 months of the season wasn't, extraordinary for them at all, because they only went 9-5 in April, losing their opener to the expansion Twins, and then they lost 3 games to the Orioles and tied 1, and they ended with a loss to the expansion Senators as well. Maris only had 1 home run at this point, and Mantle had 7. May was a little bit better, but not much. They went 14-12 in the month of May, and were only 3.5 games back of the Tigers at the end of it, so that was good. However, they were at one point only 2 games above 500, and the power combo of Mantle and Maris at the end of May had a combined 26 dingers. Then came the Heat. All right. So they were 2 games above 500 in the middle of May. Then they went on to win 6 of the last 8 games of that month. Then in June, they go 22-10 and are 2 games out of first behind the Detroit Tigers at the end of June. Okay. Whitey Ford's 14-2 as of June 30th. Maris has 27 dingers. Mantle has 25 dingers. And again, it's starting to heat up for him. So the Yankees in July went 20-9, and at this point had jumped the Tigers for a 1.5 game lead for first place. Mantle hit 9 homers, and Maris had hit 13 dingers in the month of July, and Ford at this point was 19-2. August saw the Yankees go 22-9 and still lead only by 1.5 games in front of the Tigers. Going into September, Maris had a total of 51 dingers on the season, becoming the first player ever to hit 50 home runs by the end of August. Mantle was at 48. Ford was leading the majors with 22 wins. And the first 3 games in September was a 3-game series against the Detroit Tigers. And the Yankees were coming off a 3-game series in which they just lost 2-1 to the Minnesota Twins, and the Tigers were coming to Yankee Stadium winning 11 of their last 14 games. The series at the start of September could make the case will be the winner of this will be the AL pennant race winner. But they still had a 4-game series left on it later in the month. So game 1 was Whitey Ford versus Don Massey. 2 aces for both teams. Ford only lasted 4 2/3 innings, giving up 4 hits. And he was pulled for Bud Daly, who pitched 3 1/3, giving up 3 hits and walking 3. Then comes in Luis Arroyo. He comes in the 9th and pitches a 1-2-3 inning with 1 K. Arroyo at this point has 10 consecutive saves, or 10 consecutive wins as a reliever. Mossy had pitched the entire game for the Tigers and had 7 Ks, including striking out Mantle 3 times and Maris once. Then with 2 outs, Howard and Berra, Elston Howard and Yogi Berra, both singled to bring up Skowron, who hit a single down the third base line to drive in the game winner. As Howard crossed the plate for the game, So the Yankees win the first game of the series 1-0. The Yankees then win the next night 7-2. And that saw Ralph Terry for New York and Frank Larry for Detroit. The Yankees had 8 hits, 2 of those being Maris dingers. Then game 3 of the series saw the Yankees winning 4-1. Saw the Yankees winning 4-1 after 5. In the 6th and 8th, the Tigers scored a run in each to make it 4-3. Then comes the top of the 9th, and Aurora's on the mound, and the Tigers scored 2 to make it 5-4 and take the lead. But the Yankees weren't done. In the bottom of the 9th, the Yankees scored 4 runs. The first was a game-tying shot by Mantle, his 50th of the year. And with 2 on and 2 out, Elston Howard hit a 3-run shot that ended up having the Yankees sweep the Tigers to extend their lead to 4.5 games. After this game, the Yankees would go on to win 10 more straight, while the Tigers would lose 5 straight. When the Tigers would win again, they would be 10 games back. And at the start of the next series against the Yankees on September 15th, the Tigers were 10.5 games back. The Yankees and Tigers ended up splitting that series 2-2. But the Yankees had already taken control of the pennant race and clinched the pennant on 9/19 after winning the second game of a doubleheader against the Orioles. With the AL clinched by the Yankees, they just had to wait and see who their opponent was, which at this point would be the Reds, and the Reds would clinch the NL pennant on September 25th when the Dodgers lost to the Phillies 2-1. Mantle would not play the last 4 games of the season and in only 2 of the 5 World Series games due to a hip infection. Maris would hit dinger with 61 against Boston on October 1st, and MLB Commissioner Ford Frick did what he promised to do, and he put an asterisk next to the 61st dinger. Frick did this as he was a close friend to Ruth and the Ruth family, and in 1991, Faye Vincent removed the asterisk, and Maris had passed away in 85 without knowing he was the home run season king. And that was up until 1998 when McGuire hit 70. McGuire hit number 62 on September 8th, 1998 against the Cubs. The 61 World Series would be won by the Yankees 4-1, and they outscored the Reds 27-13. In Game 1, Elston Howard and Skowron hit solo dingers as the only run scored, and Whitey Ford pitched 9 innings of 2 hit, gave up 0 runs, and struck out 6. Game 2, the Reds won 6-2. And by lighting up Ralph Terry and Luis Aurora. 6 runs were on 9 hits. Berra hit a 2-run shot in the first for the only Yankees runs. Game 3, Yankees won 3-2 with dingers from Johnny Blanchard and Roger Maris in the 8th and 9th. Berra hit an RBI single in the 7th, and up until that Berra single, the Reds were up 1-0. The Reds scored in the bottom of the 7th with an RBI single by Eddie Casco, and that was their only other run. Game 4 saw the Yankees win 7-0 with pitching from Ford and Jim Coates, and then Game 5 was won by the Yankees 13-5. Whitey Ford won the MVP award that year. Bobby Richardson led both teams with 9 hits and batted .391 for the series. Johnny Blanchard had 2 home runs and 10 at-bats. Maris only had 2 hits, a dinger and a double. Hector Lopez drove in 7 runs and 9 at-bats while only having 3 hits. It was a single, a triple, and a dinger. And there was only 1 stolen base between the two teams the entire series. But the stat of the 1996 or the 1961 season has to belong to Luis Arroyo. He went 15-5 and had 29 saves while pitching 119 innings. Now, as one of the probably most forgotten teams to be around, the 61 Yankees has to be considered one of the best teams of all time. I mean, they went 109-53-1, which makes them 7th all time in the list of teams for wins, and the 3rd most wins by a Yankee team behind the 98 and 27 Yankees. The 61 Yankees had stats of they finished 3rd in at-bats with 5,559. They scored 827 runs that year. They had 1,461 hits, with 240 of those being home runs. They had 40 triples. They had 194 doubles. They walked 543 times. They had 35 hit by pitches, and they only struck out 785 times. They had a slugging percentage of .442, and they batted .263 as a team. Their .330 on-base percentage ranked 7th that year. However, the tail of the tape is their pitching staff, where their pitching staff was 2nd in ER with a 3.46 ERA. They were 6th in complete games with 47. They threw 14 shutouts. They had 39 saves, and their pitchers threw the 3rd most innings. They gave up the 2nd most, or they were 2nd in hits, which they only gave up 1,288. They also only gave up 558 earned runs, and they only gave up 612 runs all season long. They only gave up 137 home runs. This pitching staff was elite, led by Whitey Ford. And most of these Yankees are in the Hall of Fame from this team, like Whitey Ford and Elston Howard and Mantle and Berra. Berra was 36 years old and starting left field. This team had, like I said, my grandpa's favorite players on the team. He would talk about them for years and years to me as a kid growing up. I would buy him anything that I could see of the Yankees for him to put in his computer room, which is surrounded with Yankees merchandise. To him, this team was mythical. The group of guys that were legends to him. And we, as baseball fans, we should be thankful that the Yankees of 61 played with such a chip on their shoulder as they did for them to pull off the victories that they did that year. So, in remembrance of my grandpa, whose favorite number is 7, his favorite pitcher of all time, Whitey Ford, this episode is dedicated to him. And him being the biggest fan of ours, or at least mine, as a kid and now. And even he would be so proud of this podcast as it is. He'd be so proud of me just doing it and being able to talk sports to everybody like we used to do in his living room. So, follow me on Twitter. Follow me on TikTok. Follow me on Facebook. Follow me on Instagram, One Guy with a Mic. Follow me on Twitch, One Guy with a Mic Sportscast. And I apologize to all my basketball fans out there, but this week is dedicated to baseball. So, y'all have a good one. Tell someone you love them because they're not around forever. And if I could give my grandpa a hug right now, I would. So, peace.
offices of the Pittsburgh Guardian newspaper circa 1924. But for Marla Delft, assistant editor, everything was about to change. For she was about to discover the awesome attractiveness of Row 1 brand retro sports paraphernalia items thanks to Orville Mulligan, sports writer.
And there it is.
Wow, Orville, that's really the bee's knees.
Isn't it just? A poster-sized replica of the actual 1909 World Series program cover.
I can see that. But where did you get it? And where'd you get it framed?
I ordered it from the Row 1 website, where over 6,000 items of sports memorabilia from the 1880s to the 1990s are available for reproduction, in multiple sizes and in several different materials, with over a dozen styles of frame to choose from for prints like this.
Well, I'm sure Mr. Delft would love to put up more of these in the office. But I'm equally as sure they're beyond this newspaper's budget.
Not at all, my dear Marla. See for yourself. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com/row1.
sportshistorynetwork.com/row1. Oh my, these are good prices. Oh, and look at this stuff. Oklahoma-Nebraska football, college basketball art, Michael Jordan items.
And so it
retro
was that
sports
Marla Delft
advertisement
discovered the
placards.
splendiferous magic of Row 1 sports memorabilia, arts, and prints. You can too by visiting sportshistorynetwork.com/row1. That's ROW1 today for access to the full Row 1 catalog of gallery prints and gifts like t-shirts, long-sleeve shirts, telephone cases, coffee mugs, blankets, pillows, towels, and even shower curtains. Act today for 15% discount off all prints with coupon code SHN15 and 20% off all other items with coupon code SHN20 at checkout. And keep your dial locked to the Sports History Network for the exciting chronicles of the 1920 sports world in Orville Mulligan, sports writer. Coming soon.